I mean, so one of the things that I've been thinking about lately, so I was a leftist for most of my
Mm.
life. I grew up as, a Marxist. I identified as a socialist until maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago or something like that. I was always a feminist. I don't identify as anything anymore. Um, but I've been trying to figure out if the problem, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I didn't leave the left left me," whereas I did leave the left. And I think that there's more of a fundamental problem with leftist thinking and with leftist ideology. But I think a lot of people who, like me, sort of abandoned the left or felt that they had to stop voting left or stop voting Democrat or whatever, um, they feel sort of like the left changed, like something drastic changed. And I'm not sure that's true. And I'm curious to know what you think.
Well, it depends what you mean. Like, I think the Democratic Party changed. In terms of the left, like scum manifesto reading raver friends of mine from the 90s, no, they didn't change at all. I think that what happened, there's always been bullshit. But what happened is that as you've seen demographic changes and age changes in the USA, the mainstream of the Democratic Party, in my opinion, but there's a lot of research backing this up, has moved away from like James Carville, Joe Biden, Jesse Jackson, these kind of crooked union boss types, but good leaders that would go toe to toe with the crooked Wall Street types and good leaders in the Republican Party. So, one of the trends of the past decade or so, 2 decades probably, has been ideas that used to be considered totally fringe. Like leaving the gender stuff aside, like the idea that the USA got its wealth from slavery. Like that
Mm.
is a very dumb idea to some extent. Like slavery existed in the poorest region of the United States. My ancestors worked, I wouldn't even say hard as they had to after losing the war. But I mean, like slaves were trapped in that region, survived bravely, contributed a lot to American culture, jazz, and all that. But that was not the center of economic industry in the United States. And I think we all know that it still isn't. I live here now. And that's something the South is almost proud about. We're the tough agrarian, hunting, just now building region of the country. Austin and Nashville and so on are just growing up now, Birmingham and all that. But so the idea that slavery built America was something that seemed to directly contradict the stereotype of the South as more backward, fewer people, so on, that had existed for virtually all time, that Thomas Sowell and William Julius Wilson had agreed on. And if you fact check the 1619 Project, you find that the earlier stereotype was pretty much correct. Like claims like slavery produced X amount of American GDP in the year 1850 almost always come from doing nonsensical things like counting cotton 3 times. Like the value of the
Mm.
raw product the slaves produced, then the value of improved textiles America made, so on down the line. Anyway, I guess the point is just that was not something anyone thought. Over time, as the Democratic Party became the party that got 90% of the black vote, as academia moved to where it is now, which is about 93-7 left to right, the fringe became more what people associated with not just the left, but with liberalism. So I don't think the extreme left. I don't think I've read some of the first radical feminists that I don't think they've changed their position on much of anything. I don't
Mm.
think that communists have changed their position, so on. I just think
Mm.
that now you're in a place where people that pretty much are communists, Bernie Sanders, AOC, so on, are in the mainstream Democratic tent. And where ideas like reparations that were extraordinarily French, that were things you'd go to a college march for, um, are now part of the national debate. Like states that never had slavery have these reparations panels, and they're talking about awarding tens of millions of dollars to black residents of the state. Many of whom are from like Ghana. So left hasn't changed, but the left has become more a part of the mainstream Democratic Party, and people are noticing.